Hi, welcome to another lecture. In this lecture, I will discuss the problem of free will, or free will versus determinism. I will refer to two essays, one by Walter Stace, Is Determinism Inconsistent with Free Will? The other one, which is one of the best essays about determinism, is Dalbach of the System of Man's Free Agency. Now, let's start with the idea of determinism. This is, by the way, is a huge topic, so I'm going to try to cover the basics in this video. I hope it's not too long. There is a lot to be said. It's not easy to capture. You would probably need to take an entire year to understand really the technicalities of determinism. But for the purpose of this introduction to philosophy, I think what I'm going to cover is going to be enough. Let me start with the argument from determinism and try to understand what determinism is. Well, in order to understand what determinism is, I want to talk about what most people think it is the case with the world. Now, most people like you and me don't think that we are robots. We think that we have choice. We think that, for example, you think, I'm sure, that you are watching this video because you had a choice. You chose to do so. But you could have chosen otherwise. You know, you could have chosen to go out for ice cream or to take a walk. You could have chosen to read a book, listen to music, anything else. It's totally up to you, okay? Just like it's up to me, every human being has this capacity, okay? There's this freedom to decide to go right, to go left, to go up and down, and so on. But the idea of determinism challenges this idea of freedom. Now, there are various positions, as we will see. There is one position that is typically it's called hard determinism, that says that we are determined through and through. I have not explained yet what that means, but I will in a second. There are several positions. There is a position that says that freedom of choice is compatible with determinism, and that is the position of Walter Stace, as we will see. So there is incompatibilism, compatibilism. There are many different positions, but let's make the things simpler, and let's talk about determinism. So, as I was saying, determinism challenges the idea that we as human beings have free choice. Let's look at an argument, the structure of the argument, and comment on the argument. Well, an argument for determinism might look more or less like this argument here. So let's start premise by premise, and I'm going to explain premise by premise what it means. Take premise one. Premise one starts by saying, all natural events are caused. So what are natural events? Well, by natural events, we mean everything and anything that exists in nature. For example, right now there might be a tree in Central Park, and that tree has leaves on it, and some leaves fall down, become detached from the branches and fall down to the ground. Now, that is an event, and it's a natural event. It's not a supernatural one. In that event, we say, in that sense, in the sense that is caused. Why is it caused? Well, it's caused because, obviously, maybe not obviously for everyone, but it seems to me obvious that the leaf did not think, now I will become detached from the tree, from the branch, and fall down. Nor did the tree had a choice and said, now I will drop this or that leaf. Okay? We all agree, I hope, on that. Now, then, if the tree or the leaf doesn't have the choice, what happened? Why did the leaf fall? Well, I suppose natural processes. The tree ages, so internally the tree changes, and it causes. It makes connections, internal connections to the leaf. What we call those causes, and these causes produce certain effects. And one of the effects is that the leaves of a tree become detached at one point for a variety of reasons. Okay, not out of choice, but as natural processes. The wind blows. The wind is not an entity that can think, can decide. Winds exist because of, well, I guess the ultimate cause is the tilt of our planet. There are winds, there's high pressure and low pressure. They cause winds. Again, that's a natural event. The cause is, there is a cause. The cause itself is not a free choice. It's just determined. So, given the tilt of the axis of our planet, given the state of the tree, the nature of the tree, certain things will happen. So all natural events have a cause. Now let's move on to the next premise. All caused events are determined and not free. Okay? This is an important step in the argument, because it says that all events that are caused are determined and not free. So going back to the example of the tree or the wind, we see that there's a cause. As I said before, the cause might be the tilt, the axis, the nature of the tree. These factors cause certain effects. Now, the cause itself, then, as I noted, the cause itself is not free. The cause itself, it's intrinsic to the nature of an object. Okay, so the tree, given the nature of the tree will grow and shed leaves and so on, grow fruit and so forth. So all caused events, all events that have a cause, are not free. They are determined. So by determined is meant that something, an event, has to happen, must happen. There's a necessity that event happens. And the necessity is determined by something else, which is a cause. Now, even more important step, the third step says that all human choices are natural events. This is pretty hard to deny. Everything that exists in nature is natural. So human beings exist in nature. We are part of nature. We're not supernatural. We are inside nature. And so we are natural, and our events, our actions, our choices, our thoughts, everything that we do must be a natural event. Following? Okay, now let's put everything together. So from these three steps, what follows? It follows that all human choices are caused. Okay? Why are they caused? Well, again, it follows from the three steps, because all natural events are caused. All natural events are caused. Can you think of a natural event that is not caused? Everything has a cause. All cause events are determined. All human choice are natural events. It follows that all human choices are caused. And consequently, the conclusion is that we have to conclude that all human choices are determined. They're not free. If there is a problem in the argument, please tell me what the problem is. Obviously, you're going to tell me in the comments. Now, Dolbach, in his essay, very interesting essay, takes this line of argument. Essentially, it's very simple. We're all human beings. We are part of nature. There's no reason to believe that we are free. What could possibly make human beings free? After all, we are part of nature. Let's try the strategy. Perhaps the fact that we have brains makes us free. But that, in fact, makes it even less free, because think about the following. What is a brain? Well, a brain is an organ, okay? And organs are made of tissue, cells, blood, and so on. And they're made of atoms, they're made of matter, they're made of stuff. But this stuff doesn't think. Remember, this goes back to, it connects to two topics that we discussed earlier in the semester. One is atomism. If you recall, we discussed the pre-Socratic philosophers. In particular, we discussed Democritus. Democritus believed that the universe is made of atoms. We know that the universe is made of atoms. Nowadays, scientists tell us that the universe is made of even more fundamental particles, particles that we can't even see, we can't even detect with microscopes. So these particles, it seems, don't have an intelligence, don't have a freedom. They're just particles, and they obey the laws of nature. They go up and down, left and right, due to the laws of nature. Okay? So a brain, which is made of matter, which obeys the laws of nature, is not going to help you make free choices. The second way in which this discussion is connected to a previous lecture is the discussion on, remember, the philosophy of mind. You remember the mind-body problem. And you remember that I explained that materialists say that human beings are natural. And so if they are natural, You see, the implication is that we are determined, because there's nothing that we can do, that we can possess, that will confer upon us freedom of choice. That's why, if you recall, the dualists say that it is obvious that we are free, and it is obvious that we are natural beings, so our freedom is not conferred upon us by our nature, by our physical nature. Consequently, it follows that it must be due to our non-physical nature, our minds, which are not physical. See? So, as long as we are natural, we are constrained by the laws of nature. And so our actions are not free. Now, all this seems very strange, especially to students when this topic is discussed. But mind you, many philosophers as well as scientists, especially scientists with of a naturalistic inclination, typically argue that it is the case that we are determined. They have a hard time explaining why we're free because of this argument, because if we are natural beings, we're not free. Consequently, if we are natural beings, we are determined. So how do you explain the fact that we make choices? Well, some people say, well, we have an illusion that we make choices. In reality, we don't make choices. Think about, for example, the one experiment conducted in, it was first conducted in the late 70s, I think in 79. It's called the Libet, Benjamin Libet, or Libet, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Benjamin Libet experiment. Okay, I'm going to write it down here. Ben Libet experiment. Now, let me try to explain the experiment, but I think it's easier for you and quicker for you to go on YouTube and Google the experiment. You'll find a million hits. The experiment is very interesting because it seems to show that human beings are determined, are just like robots. But because of the complexity of our brains, we, I guess the idea, the argument is that the very complexity of our brains, because we have trillions of neurons, this complexity gives rise to this illusion that we are free. But in reality, we are not free. We only experience what's happening to us, which is already determined by factors over which we have no control, because that's what's important for determinism. Factors that determine our behavior over which we have no control. So let me talk about this experiment first, and then I'm going to give you other examples. The experiment essentially is they placed individuals in front of a screen of a monitor, and they asked them to push a button whenever they saw a light up on the monitor. Now, of course, they gave them total freedom to choose whether they wanted to. So, in other words, they said, if the idea is to press the button when you see the light, but it's totally up to you. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Okay? So, and these subjects were all connected to scans, all kinds of scans to a computer, because the computer would monitor their brain activity. Okay? So, what happened in the experiment? It's very exciting because the experiment led to this observation. The subject is aware of the light. The subject pushes the button. Now, ideally, if we are free, this is the hypothesis. If human beings are free, what would you observe? You would observe that there's a light, the light lights up, then the subject becomes aware of wanting to press the button, and he presses the button, or she presses the button. However, what they observed was very interesting, was something different. Namely, what they observed was the following. First, there is an event in the brain. That event might be your awareness of the light going off. Then, what's interesting is this. There is a second brain activity, brain event. Okay? Now, this brain event, according to the experiment, this brain event in between occurs prior to the subjects being aware of wanting to press the button. And then there's a third event, namely the subjects becoming aware of a decision of wanting to press the button. So, to summarize, what's the point of the experiment? The point of the experiment is, if human beings are free, why do we see three events? Why is there an event that occurs prior to the subjects being aware of what's going on? It would seem that that brain event is what makes the decision for the subject, okay? It is, in other words, what determines the subject to push the button. And so this would suggest that human beings, in fact, are not free because their decisions are made before they are aware of these decisions. And then they just do whatever the cause requires of them. Now, there are several observations, of course, to this experiment. One of which, I guess the most important one, is to note that whether the event is, I mean, for example, there might be a discrepancy with a computer, okay? How does a computer know that we're not aware? But that's a different story. But another observation, another objection might be, at least the most obvious objection, would be, but even if we are not aware, at least at some level, maybe we are aware at some level, and we the computer can't determine that. Maybe we are, subconsciously somehow. But even if we are not aware, guess what? The decision, or if you want to call it the cause for my pushing the button, was made by me, by no one else but me. It is my brain, as a matter of fact, that made that decision. True, that's a possibility, but the determinist would say, even though the decision was made somehow by your brain, okay, somehow it's an internal decision. Still, it doesn't show that you are free, because for one thing, you could observe that there are many things that your body does, but by no means are they your choice. For example, right now, as you're watching this video, your body is producing red blood cells. But it's not your decision. It's not free. You're not free. You have no control over that. Okay? So it really happens to you. Similarly, according to this experiment, you're pushing the button, just happens to you, and you become aware that that happens. Okay? Now, another observation is the following. Let's say that, okay, let's assume it's an internal decision made by your brain. However, what caused that decision to be made? You see, there must be some perhaps external factors. One of which is the fact that a scientist told you to do it. It might be, and now why are you prone to obeying the directions, following the directions of a scientist that asks you to push a button in case you see a light showing up on your monitor? Well, that itself might be explained in terms of your upbringing, for example. The kind of people you frequented, the kind of person you have become, and that is a product of a long chain of events in your existence over which you have no control whatsoever. Okay? So the idea of determinism is the following. First of all, the most obvious thing is you are not free to decide to be born to be alive. Well, of course. Secondly, you do not decide the structure of your brain, the neurons, the structure, the way they behave. Secondly, your upbringing is not up to you. It's something that happens to you. Your friends, the people you see, your taste in music. That's a good one. Think about, for example, the taste in music. Think about how you are not free, for example, really to... look, for example, you are free to listen to... Let's say that you hate Justin Bieber, okay? And you are free to listen to Justin Bieber. Now, although you are free, you think you are free, determinism would say, to listen to Justin Bieber. Guess what? You're not free. You don't have the capacity to choose to like Justin Bieber. That's something that you can't do. There are many things that you cannot do because they are determined. And so when you look at a human being as a whole, that's the story. A human being is the product of many factors, but these factors are not under the control of that human being. You can say, well, I could have become a firefighter instead of a college student. But the determinist says, but that's false, because to say that you could have become a firefighter instead of a college student, like in this case, it only means that given a different kind of life, given a different kind of upbringing, and given a whole set of new factors in your life over which you would have no control, you could have been a firefighter. But it was not your choice to become a firefighter or to become a student, because given exactly who you are, growing up where you grew up, in your neighborhood, in your country, in your city, with the friends that you saw, your upbringing, etc., all those factors that are outside your control determine who you are and eventually determine that you will become a college student, period. If you were to rewind the picture and input the same factors in your life, you would end up exactly the same here as a college student. Okay? Now, furthermore, determinists say there's no clear sense of what it means to be free. What they mean is that the very notion of freedom is absurd. Just can't explain how you can be free. Think about this. To be free, what does that mean? Does it mean that every action that you perform is your free choice? Yes, of course. But what does that mean, a free choice? A free choice would have to be, I take it, a choice made for no reason whatsoever. But that is not free if you do something for no reason whatsoever. In what sense can you call that free? Let me give you an example. Let's say that I take this bottle of water and I drink it. I take a sip. Now you ask me, why did you do that? Because you were thirsty? No reason whatsoever. Well, then it means that as an individual in your life, things happen to you and you're not even, you are aware of them, but you don't choose to do them. They just happen to you. You just do them for no reason whatsoever. But obviously that's absurd because there's always a reason. So if I take this bottle of water and I drink it, obviously you might say, well, you were free to do that. Okay? But the determinist says you were not really free to do that because you didn't drink because you were free. You drank the water because you were determined to do so. Determined by whom or by what? Well, determined by your thirst. You become thirsty, dehydrated, your body is determining you to take that bottle and take a sip. Now, there's an interesting observation by Dolbach in his paper. He says, but let's assume that people say, well, guess what? I'm going to prove it to you that I'm free. Okay? And even if I get thirsty, I'm not going to drink. I'd rather die than drink the water. Okay? And let's assume that a person is so crazy as to refusing to drink in order to show his freedom of choice. Well, according to Dolbach, that would not show that that person is free. It would certainly show that that person is crazy, but it would show that, once again, he did not refrain from drinking the water out of his freedom of the will, but rather he was determined to do so. Determined by what? Determined by the urge to prove you wrong and show you that he is free. So it's that, the determinant factor. And now, if you say yes, but it was his decision to prove it to you. No, it was not really his decision, because if you remember, according to the argument, every action has a cause. So, what is the cause of this individual's wanting to show you that he is free and willing to and being willing to die of thirst? There must be something that determines that. There must be something that causes that behavior. And once again, we're right back to square one, that we have no free choice because every event that happens is determined. The choices you make in life, even the thoughts that you have in your mind. Let's say, for example, that you are thinking right now, oh, this lecture is boring. I would rather be on my bike outside or on a beach. Well, ask yourself, the determinist would say, ask yourself, why did you have that thought? Were you free to have that thought? Now, really, the thought just popped into your mind, but why? Well, maybe because, well, obviously because you're bored. Now, why are you bored? Why are you bored? Could you have chosen not to be bored? It seems that the answer is no, because if you're bored, genuinely bored, you are bored, and so you could not have chosen otherwise. So there must be some factors that, given your nature, given the nature of your brain, and given the nature of the lecture, they cause your structure of your brain and who you are to be bored as a result of the lecture. Consequently, you're not free to be bored, but you are determined to be bored. All right? I hope this makes sense to you. So, in sum, the idea of determinism is there's no way to even explain freedom. If you do things without a reason, without a cause, you're not free. Your actions are just random. On the other hand, if you do things because there is a cause, still you're not free because things happen for a cause. And the cause is something that you have no control over, as I demonstrated. All right, now, I explained all this. Now, let's, we can say more and we can discuss more this strange notion of determinism in the discussion board. But now I just want to move on and talk about Walter Stace's strategy. Walter Stace begins his discussion by saying that that free will, this dispute, this problem, the free will versus determinism debate, is merely a verbal dispute. It's not a genuine one. Are we determined? Are we free? It's only a verbal dispute. To illustrate the verbal dispute, he uses this analogy. He says, if you define man, human being, as a five-legged animal, okay, so if you start with some strange definition or wrong definition, obviously you will conclude that there is no such thing as man because it doesn't exist. Man, there's no such thing as five-legged animal. So the definition of free will is the problem here. And according to Stace, it is the wrong definition because typically people define freedom as doing whatever you want and being able to choose or to change your mind, okay? But that's not really what freedom is. We are assuming, he says, an incorrect definition of freedom. Now, what is the correct definition of freedom? Here in his essay, he proposes the following strategy. As you can see here, this is in his essay, by the way. He has two columns, okay? Two group of actions. On the left side, you can see that there is actions that are unfree. On the right, there are free actions. So let's look at the unfree and the free. Fasting because lost in a desert. So you're lost in a desert, you don't eat. Not your fault, there's no food, you are stranded. Stealing because under duress. Confess because police beat the confession out of you. Leaving your office because removed from the office. On the other hand, look at the free actions. See the difference. Gandhi fasting to free India. Stealing because hungry. Confessing to tell the truth, just to tell the truth. And leaving your office to go to lunch. Now, what's the difference? According to Stace, acts freely done, here's his definition, are those whose immediate causes are psychological states in the agent, as I mentioned earlier. Acts not freely done are those whose immediate causes are states of affairs external to the agent. So Stace is content by saying that the idea of freedom of the will, this freedom, is just an illusion. There's no freedom in the sense that we can do whatever we want. We are determined, of course. To a certain extent, we are determined. Okay? It would be absurd to say that we are completely free. There's no such thing as completely free, because every action, every thought, everything that we do is caused. Okay? It does have a cause. But to be free, although it means to be caused, that our actions are caused by something, it depends how they are caused. If they are caused by states of affairs, okay, by situations, by events over which we have no control, they are external to ourselves, then we are not free. We are determined. Okay? But in most cases, when you choose to eat an ice cream, okay, it is true that the decision is made, might be made for you by your brain. But still, the point is that it's made inside you. It's internal to you, to the agent. Okay? It is, so the immediate cause is a psychological state, your psychological state, not a psychological state of somebody else. Okay? And so what Stace concludes is that that in fact the fact that we are free, being free requires that we are determined somehow. But determined, again, by a psychological state that is internal to the agent. Now, furthermore, he also has a very interesting argument. He says, in order for human beings to be morally culpable, to be morally responsible, to have moral responsibility, we have to be free, okay? Because if we are completely determined, like robots, then we are not culpable for what we do. If I kill a man, okay, I'm not morally wrong. I didn't do anything morally wrong. I didn't do anything moral in the first place, because killing a man is just an action, just like any other action, just like for a tree growing a branch. But that's not what we experience. That's not what we think. In fact, there is such thing as moral responsibility. Morality matters to us, and that's what's important for freedom. So the very fact that we are morally responsible, morally accountable, shows that we are free. If human actions and volitions were uncaused, completely uncaused, it would be useless either to punish or reward a person. So punishment and reward, in fact, makes sense, and we do it all the time. It makes sense, and it even makes sense to modify the behavior of Stace notes of machines. If your car misbehaves, just because it's determined to do so, you want to do something about it, and so you fix it, you change its behavior. Similarly, human beings, even if they are predictable, and you know that they will act in a certain way as a result of an action, you still do it for the sake of moral responsibility, at least. All right, so in conclusion, for Stace, freedom, complete freedom doesn't exist. But complete determinism is also wrong. And that is shown by the fact that we are morally culpable, morally responsible. So I guess the question would be, if Stace defines freedom as actions performed by an agent that are caused by the immediate psychological state of that agent, internal to that agent, then the question would be, what is the cause of that internal psychological state? Because we go back to the idea, the determinist would say, all fine and good, Stace, but all you're saying is that we are completely determined, but we think that we are free. Now, even if you argue that we are more responsible, that could be part of the game. We are determined, and we also determined to react in ways that we think that we are more responsible, and culpability might be part of the whole story. At any rate, tell me what you think in your comments. Unfortunately, we are not in a classroom that I can ask you questions. This is a very complicated topic. It's a very huge topic, and it would be nice to have a direct feedback. But we can do this in the discussion board. So please ask your questions. Let's have discussions. If anything is not clear to you, I'll be glad to explain it again. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture.